All right, so first off, before we dive into the training, welcome again to the group officially. We are excited that you're ready to take your sales skills to the next level. If you don't already know, my name is 𝗙𝗵𝗂𝗂𝗏. I am the founder of Six Figure Closer and the community. I've been in sales for about the last 7 years across a few different roles. My most recent role being in business-to-business inside sales. My most recent offer consisted of selling a lead gen service to home improvement contractors. So it could have been anything from as small as like a drywall repair all the way up to a custom home build. The offer was a pay-per-lead service along with a subscription and then a membership that they had to pay to join. So for the most part, it included cold calling contractors of all different fields and obviously trying to sell them on the service. I will say though, my first few months when I started out with that company were pretty rough. I was just handed some company script, they gave me some training on how to handle basic objections, and I was pretty much left to figure it out on my own. So at the same time I was drowning and feeling overwhelmed with how to exactly approach these calls, I would also see our company-wide sales chat making post after post of the same top reps that were closing sales consistently day in and day out. So probably like most people, at first I figured it was all just luck and that it was pretty much a numbers game, right? After watching it for a few weeks, I quickly realized it wasn't just luck. These reps were way too consistent for it just to be sheer luck. I started to think, well, maybe they have better leads or maybe they have some magical sales script. Either way, I wasn't where I wanted to be with the commissions that I was personally making, so I decided I was going to figure out how to be a top rep if that was the last thing that I did. To summarize it from there, I then went on to spend hundreds of hours of listening to recordings of calls from these same reps, studying their scripts, how they handled objections, what their intros were like, how they asked for payment, and eventually figured out where they were getting their leads from. So I decided to put a framework together and went on to try and test the methods that I had studied from them. Along the way, I would make minor tweaks for anything that I would notice that didn't work well or things that did work well. Overall, it took me about 6 months from my initial hire date to finally crack the code and have a process and system in place I could use to effectively close more sales and earn the commissions that I wanted to. So to end the long-winded story, that very same year, I made it into President's Club for the first time and then would go on to a second President's Club the following year in 2023. That same year for 2023, I would end up in the top 20 of sales reps company-wide. I went from practically being on pace to make about $50K a year to having multiple six-figure years, with last year alone earning over $265K. From there, my management team would send me reps that needed additional coaching. So it eventually got to the point where they had me hosting several company-wide webinars and Q&A sessions so that other reps and teams could understand better what I was doing that allowed me to produce consistent results. One thing to note here as well, which I know my manager wasn't a fan of, but from the start of summer to the end of the year, our company had this thing called Summer Fridays, which eventually it extended into Fall and Winter Fridays. But essentially what it was is if we met a certain goal during that week, we could then take that Friday off pay. So for just about half the year, of course, I was taking every Friday off to spend more time with my family and actually doing the things that I enjoyed doing, because who doesn't enjoy more time to themselves? So through that, I somehow managed to maintain my goals for the year and exceed company expectations, doing all of this on a 4-day work week, spending no more than my scheduled 8 hours a day to do it. Now, why do I mention all of that, and what does it have to do with the mindset of top sales reps? Well, when I would go to these President's Club celebrations, I was able to spend a good amount of time with other top reps inside of our company. I realized that these reps were just different. They stood out from everyone else inside the company. They were extremely disciplined, they were always eager to learn, they had specific daily routines, and were always focused on bettering themselves and simplifying their process as much as they could. And let me be clear here, I am a firm believer that anyone can be a top rep in their current sales role. Hitting 6 figures a year consistently is not very complicated. It just takes some discipline discipline and the right direction to get there. So if reaching 6 figures a year is your goal, then you're in the right place. And maybe your goal is even more than just reaching 6 figures. Maybe you want to reach multiple 6 figures. Maybe your goal is 300K a year. Whatever it is, the first thing you need to realize is that your goal is 100% achievable, and it all starts with your mindset. Think about what you're doing now in order to get where you want to go. What are the goals that you have, and what's the fastest way to get there? If being a top rep and getting 1% better each day is your goal, then I can assure you that top reps practice, they study, they put in the effort, and most importantly, they keep a positive mindset. Which, if you've never thought about it deeply enough before, keeping a positive mindset will help you way more than you think. So just to give you a prime example of this, there's a book called The Hidden Messages of Water by Masaru Emoto. In the book, Dr. Emoto talks about the studies and experiments he performed with water. Inside of his studies, he found that water exposed to positive words and intentions would form symmetrical crystalline structures when the water was frozen. On the opposite end, when the same water was exposed to negative words and intentions, it formed disorganized and asymmetrical structures. So if even water itself is affected by positive or negative thoughts, imagine how much further you could go with positive thoughts and intentions. The entire goal of this group is to build a community of like-minded people that are all striving to better themselves every day and help them learn the skills they need in order to make the commissions they deserve. It's also for sharing ideas that are working or aren't working in order to minimize the amount of time you spend trying to figure it out on your own. Goal is to help you focus and close more sales overall. So with that said, if there's anything you feel you're having trouble with, please don't hesitate to throw it in the group chat. Of course, you can always message me directly as well if that's more comfortable for you. Either way, I'm excited you made the decision to join the group, and please share your successes you get out of it along the way. One last note, I'm also open to and welcome any feedback you might have to better the community. With that said, we'll see you in the next training.